Okay, my outstanding friends, Roger once again, Mudfossil University, another shocker du jour. I am going to take on the Geological Society and to their claims, which they really have no idea, how Devil's Tower formed. It says, geologists studied the formation since the 1800s and today still wonder how it formed. Now, they have a bunch of theories. And these are their different theories, the formation theories. Well, I have my statements to make about how Devil's Tower formed, and I will show you precisely why I can make these claims. And then I want Reuters, who is the fact checker, to dispute my claims if they're wrong. I want them to say, yes, this guy's right or this guy's wrong. They do this all the time, and they've talked about Devil's Tower before. And somebody put something out that it was a tree, and it's not a tree, and they're correct, it's not a tree. But I will show you what it is, and then I want Reuters to respond. All right, we'll find out if they do. Okay, just so you understand, Yale accepts my research. This is exceptional preservation of soft-bodied creatures and promoted by silica-rich oceans. Etacarta just means one layer worldwide, and it's because of the oceans were rich with silica. Well, one ocean coated the whole world because it was the Great Flood. And the silica, I fully understand because of my work in the chemistry, was because of the actual hot water flood. Now let's see what they have to say about this exceptional preservation of soft-bodied forms. Many of the fossils are preserved as, full-bodied creatures in the mud fossils. All right, this makes it just complicated so they can justify their. Plus, this was just put out a year after I presented all my stuff to Yale, but this pretty much summarizes it. Yale News. This is 2016 when they did their paper about the sea creatures in this biota. Now let me just point out a couple of things they say here. We likely wouldn't know about it at all, scientists say, if not for a quirk in the chemistry of the ancient oceans. Well, what was that quirk? Saturations of silica. What causes a saturated silica? They have no idea. All right, just read this right here. This Etacarta biota takes its name from a deposit in South Australia. But these fossils of this era and these body parts are found worldwide in rocks, and they say from 540 million years ago. The creatures themselves were small as a few millimeters and as large as 1 meter. Well, they get way larger than that. And they lived in dense, diverse communities on the sea floor. The whole earth was coated with an ocean from the floodwaters that killed all of the giant creatures that were on earth. This is all recorded, and it happened not long ago, and all of my stuff is on top of the surface of the earth. I didn't have to dig for anything, so it's not 540 million years ago. And then they claim this as well. Listen to these two statements. Many of these creatures are outright bizarre in appearance and don't resemble any organism alive today. They had to be wiped off the face of the earth. This is from Lydia Tarhan. She's the first author from Yale on this paper. Then listen to this. The researchers realized, they said, was the oceans during the time were much richer in dissolved silica, and I know exactly why, than they are today. This enabled the transformation of these animals into rocks to occur over a matter of hours or years rather than the millions of years. Okay, this is going to be hard to dismiss. Look at the structure, how it comes down and flares out around. Look at the way this interweaves down here. And that, I'm telling you right now, this is the heel bone, and that is the wrinkle zone of the tendon fibrils. Those fibrils are all independent from each other, and they can move like this just a tiny little bit as you can move around in your body. And here's what it looks like when a tendon breaks. You get this wrinkle zone. And here's all of the different tendon fibrils, and there's the little ball that comes around and attaches to the ankle. And that's exactly what you just saw right here. All right, now, wherever you see green it's because of there's red blood there somewhere. Now you see these up here, those are little blood vessels that are going through, and they're growing things on there now because they're very fertile. Anything with green, and the same thing all around here. These little spots here aren't just growing there for nothing. And the little moss is growing here, and you'll be able to see. I'll show you some better spots. Blood is still coming out of this. You had a little tiny bits of blood in tendon, very, very, very little, but you still have some. Everything has to be supported with a little bit of fluidity and so forth. But this wrinkle zone is, you can't dismiss what I'm going to show you. I have so much evidence about this, and anyway, let's get started, and I'll show you all my evidence. Now, first of all, I can't guarantee that Devil's Tower foot was just like our feet, because these are the no-toes, and these are not like our feet today, but very, very similar. And this is where the main bone, the tibia, comes down, and the fibula sits right on the side, and they fall right off. You see, there's another one. We have lots of these. Now, inside they have springs. They have springs instead of bones. You see, here it is right here. There's the heel bone right there. All right, and there's the strap that comes up. And you see this here? This is the wrinkle zone on a strap. The strap is a tendon as well. Remember how I showed you this here a second ago? That strap right there, that's a tendon too. It's flat, but it holds the bone back towards the heel, so you can sort of rock, and it gives you enough movement so that the bone stays together with the heel, basically. But when it breaks, it gives you that wrinkle zone, just like it does on Devil's Tower. And here's that wrinkle zone again. You see it? It should be flat and coming straight up. Well, anyway, there's a lot to this, and I think this was engineered because this is a double spring action. This here springs back, and it's all made one piece and swivels on this pin. So if it comes back this way, this little tab has a cable, looks like, comes around to this tab up here. So as this rocks this way, it pulls that in, and this has a cavity that it can go into. So you got a spring here, a spring here. Normally you're just going to use that one. Well, I guess you're always going to use them both sort of in tandem. Anytime this one rocks up, this one's going to move forward, this one's going to have to come in. And they sit on these pins. But this is not like our feet. Our feet are way different. I mean, way, way different. So anyway, that's what the feet were like back then. And they say in the Yale paper, says none of these creatures exist anymore, or they were bizarre. Yes, absolutely. And they had to be wiped off the face of the earth. All right, this is where a tendon anchors. And they have what they call abrupt transitions. There's one here, and there'll be more down there. But there's several of them until it gets really into the tendon fibers complete. So you're going to see these kind of emplacements. There's an anchor right up here, and then the tendons run out of that anchor to support whatever they're attached to, some muscle. All right, and you get a little bit of this here, but not much. The muscles, you can do all kinds of stuff, but this stuff just barely moves, and it's anchored to the bone or wherever. That's how tendons work. You see this? You see all those balls all over the earth? Those are these things here. And there's two different types of tendons. There's a ponerosa, and then there's a regular tendon. I can show all this stuff. But every one of these little fibers coming out of here is one of the fibers that's coming out of, like, Devil's Tower. You see that? Every little tiny fiber in those ends up being one of these fibers. They're all over the earth. The earth is biological. I'm telling you right now, that's just the case. And the ancient myths state that the earth was biological, and it was literally a creature. And even Jesus Christ said, if you find the earth, it's going to be a body and a corpse. Anybody that understands it. All right, just to support that statement, this is the Nag Hammadi. These are Gnostic texts. This was not in the Bible, but this is the Gospel of Thomas, who was Thomas, doubting Thomas. All right, so he was a pretty important guy. He was Jesus' scribe, and he wrote these as the living Jesus spoke them. He wrote them down, all these important things. And, you know, if you find the interpretations of these sayings, you will not experience death. That's pretty important. And Jesus said, let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished, and he will rule over the all. Now, and I'm telling you something, if you're not astonished when you see the things I show, then there's something wrong with your astonished gauge. Where was it, 53, I think it was? No, 56. Ah, there it is, 56. Jesus said, now listen to this, whoever has come to understand the world has found only a corpse. Whoever has found a corpse is superior to the world. All right, so if you can see that what I'm showing you is real, then you're superior to the world. And I think it was 80 something, 80 something. Oh, here it is right here, 80. Jesus said, he who has recognized the world has found the body. He who has found the body is superior to the world. This is the problem. The academics cannot accept reality. They are not anywhere near superior to anybody else. They are truly racketeers that say, you say what I tell you to say, or we won't give you a piece of paper that says you're smart. That's what's happened now. I'm sorry, that's just the truth. All right, so let's come back to this for a second. There's the wrinkle zone I talked about. These are the individual fibrils. Wherever you're seeing the green things growing, it grows on blood. They love blood. Blood makes things grow very green. It makes moss grow and all that. These are these little areas where the tendon fibrils come together and make that mix that anchors it, like I showed you in this other one here. All right, they all come together here, and then they tab in. Now, what else can I show you about this? I showed you the feet. I showed you how the tendons are constructed. And this is what it looks like in us today. I can't guarantee you they were the same. This shows the slip stuff. You see this little slippy stuff, these little scale? That's membranes. Every one of these fibers has a membrane. See how it's all wrinkly looking? That's a membrane. And they slid in and out of these membranes. So you could do a little bit of this and that. Otherwise, you couldn't do any of that. Your tendons all have to be somewhat flexible. But they are tough, tough, tough. Nothing like muscle. Muscle is just floppy. This stuff here, when you break a tendon, you really rip something. Because I did it to mine, both my shoulders, and working with these big heavy-duty rocks, you got to be a little careful, especially when you get older, like me. I was doing it in my 60s, and it's not good to do that. These things were hundreds and hundreds of pounds. So anyway, all right. So if there was a creature here, he had to have a body. Where'd the body go? Well, in this boiling hot floodwaters, and this is what happened, because we almost got hit by Venus. It impacted the atmosphere. It rained boiling water because it forced the oxygens and hydrogens to condense, just like making water, but normally it's cold. This was boiling hot because it came down after that concussion. And 7 days prior to that, as Venus approached Earth, it cooked everything. Everybody was jumping in the waters, they said, to try to stay alive, but then the water's boiled. This is where his body went, right here. This is red flesh and some bony materials too, connective tissue. See, the white's connective tissue, the red is fleshy stuff, and that's where he fell. Now, he would have had another foot. I think it probably was here. And what I have found, it appears you almost always see only one foot, and everybody's, would it just be one foot? Well, good question. But what's the answer? The answer is that one foot would push down in the mud, while the other one would come up to the surface and they'd be trying to do this all the time. Either both of them would go down and you wouldn't see anything, or possibly one would go down, you wouldn't see it. Now, I would wonder what was underneath here. If you dug deep down or far enough down, would you find the tendon fibrils? This is another foot here somewhere. I don't know exactly where it is, but I have another shot, I think, that shows a better possibility. Hold on. Actually, no, I don't have a better shot to show where there might have been a possible foot. I don't think. I'd have to really do some searching. But this is the layers of the tissues. The guy's body fell over. And this is where everything grows very, very nicely in the red blood. And arteries and so forth. This will all be nice and red growing here. I mean green. Just like you can see. Where is it? Hold on a second. Oh, here it is right here. You see all that green is because of blood. That's all from blood. This body fell over this way. That's it. And the white is the connective tissues and you know, really mineralized stuff. The red blood is fluidy and makes things grow fabulously. And see, it's run off down into here now. Whether his body fell over here, or maybe this is an arm sticking out here, I don't know. But wherever there's blood, this whole area here was where his body fell over, it looks like to me. See this? This is called Devil's Post Pile. And this is another wrinkle zone here where it's snapped tendons and it wrinkled back. And this is like, I don't know, maybe a shoulder or something. I don't know what it is. But wherever you see these wrinkle zones, that's where it was a snapped tension. And this snaps that way. All right, I talked about an abrupt transition before. That's about as abrupt as you can get. And this is tendon fibers, and then they made it up with the glue. Literally, there's glue that glues these fibers. And I show you a big shot of something like this. Hold on. All right, this is that glue, and these are the tendon fibers, and they come into an exact abrupt transition, just as I showed you. And this is all bloody, little gnarly stuff, just like I showed you a second ago. And these are, of course, it's very, very small compared to the other ones. I have one here that's an abrupt transition, and this is 100% silica, except where the blood is, you see? This is an abrupt transition right there. Same as like this, only this was in an area where there was nothing but silicates. Everything flushed out and left only the silicates. But this is where a tendon would have attached, and this is where some blood is. I'm going to put this in a microscope, and you'll see this is not just brown. Those are mineral inclusions that are like little bloody spots like this. And they actually glued this together. You can almost see the same looking texture here. It's like a glue. And it was so dense with silicates that anything that flushed out filled with silicates. This is a heart. That's the aorta. Some blood is still left in there. There's the ventricle walls. That's the heart. And this is a hair follicle from a giant. That's where the muscle attached, and this is where the sebaceous gland was. That's the root, and there's the hair shaft. Now, I have so much on this that it's not deniable anymore. It's only dismissible because it's just too spectacular. And it changes everything that academics have been saying about geology. Geology has to be, just throw the books away right now. I mean, you might as well just throw them in the trash. And same thing with history books. Throw those in the trash too. Or you can keep them because they'll be, you know, historical laughter in the future. All right, you saw this abrupt transition where the tendon fibers meet in the glue. This is the same thing here. This is the glue from my silicate one, which is a very abrupt transition. And that is the gluey substrate right there. It's in the microscope. And that is the abrupt transition right there. And we're looking down at that edge. You see the straight across edge there? That's what's created this gluey stuff. All right, what I want you to pay attention to is this is the red bloody spot in the abrupt transition of the tendon fibril that I have right down there in my microscope. Now, look at, hold on, let me turn the lights on. Okay. Look at how much silicate is in here. There's almost no blood at all. And that's what tendons are like. They have almost no blood whatsoever. There's a little bit right there, and that's where the gluey stuff glued that fiber together. You see it? That's where you get that gluey stuff. The same as what I just showed you right here. All right, now, and I do understand the silicates. I understand exactly why this happened and why everything is coated with feldspar. There's no question that it's because of the phospholipid membranes. Now, don't forget, there was creatures here that were basically our size. I mean, this thing here, that foot is just about exactly the same size as my foot. And I'm telling you right now, there's no question that's a foot. And the toes are built in. I call them no toes because they're built into the foot. And they have springs inside of them. All right, I think I showed you springs before, but there was several different styles of these, and these all got wiped out in the Great Flood, which Yale agrees now. Now this is the erector pili muscle on this hair follicle, and that's where it attaches, and that makes your hair stand up on end, and that is the sebaceous gland. Obviously the hair follicle came up through there, and there's the root ball, and there's the tube, vein, and artery right there. And this has all been changed because of this hot water flood. And that's exactly what they said. This happened in, I don't know how long, but it wasn't the hundreds of thousands of years. This was in a few years tops. And there was so much silicates. And I know exactly why, and I want somebody to talk to me about it. I can tell you exactly why. I know why, because of the phospholipid membranes in the hot water. I've made my own mud fossils. You can make them yourself. And it's, I presented all this to Yale with my DNA evidence, my CAT scans, my specimens, because I have giants that they refused to look at and then took credit for my work. So I am a little bitter about that. I got to be honest with you. And I do understand what this stuff is. Nobody else does. Nobody does. They just, well, it's a tree, it's a this, it's a that, it's magma, and so forth. My friend Tyson Carlson, out at Tyson's Mudfossil Adventures, he's got a site out on the West Coast. It's all this kind of stuff. It's staggering the amount of stuff that is here from gigantic creatures. I mean, you just look at everywhere on the internet now. They're just everywhere. And and now they're starting to understand what this is all made out of. And now, here's the key here, right this. There's two different types of tendons. There's a ponerosis tendon and there's other tendon. And this tendon is flat. This one has the cords, thin sheets. Well, they're not thin when you talk about giants that I'm talking about. And it is not delicate. Once it hardens up, it is hard. And it's to keep your body, well, I think I have shot. But anyway, injuries are much more common because you straight pull them hard. These, you get little knots and so forth in your stomach, because that's where this kind of aponeurosis is. Here it is right here. You see, the aponeurosis is this kind of stuff. Right? And then your regular tendon runs from your muscles to your bones and so forth. So there's two different styles. And this, I know where that is too. They made the walls in Peru out of that stuff, out in all of these ancient places where they cut them. They said, how could they fit them so perfect? They cut them moist, and then they put them in place, and they just stayed there. And those bumps sticking out are because of the aponeurosis has tendon balls. And these are the balls that they're finding all over the earth too, which are these kind of balls. Because this is the aponeurosis type. You see this? There's all kind of balls, and then there's a little strap running out, and then this is the same thing. And then you have other ones that are bones. It's two different styles. You want to see some scale? This is the Statue of Unity in India, 182 meters tall. That's 597 feet. Here's the Statue of Liberty, 152 feet. That's a puppy. Now, look at this. This is 1,267 feet. So let's go with 1,300 feet. Because a little bit's buried in the ground, I'm sure. Now, I did the calculation, figured it out. And it would come to be a person, if it was a standard sized person, I mean, looked like a standard build of a person, this would end up being about 13,000 feet tall. 13,000. All right, it would be about 10 times taller than this. All right, so if this is 1,300, let's say, 10 times taller would be 13,000. 13,000 is 2.5 miles. That's how tall this guy would have been, 2.5 miles. Guess what Enoch said in the book of Enoch about the giants? 3,000 ells equals 2.5 miles. Okay, my friends, who's got big balls? Well, these are big balls right here, and they're all over the earth. Now, what we need to do is to see if Reuters will stick to their commitment of fact-checking. They say, we fact-check, we do this. No, I approached them about something else, and I forget how it ended up, but they just said, we're happy with what we did, and that's it, case closed. Well, I have just shown evidence to support every single word I said, and it goes against every other word everybody else is saying in academia, in the geological surveys, all the geologists, all of them. The next video is going to be on balls of the world. Balls of the world. And I mean, there are balls everywhere. And these are tiny compared to some of them. And each one of them was attached to a little strap. And it was an anchor for a tendon. I'm just telling you, it's a fact. All right, there's two different types of straps. There's these here, the little black, these are they call the Moki marbles. These are in the interstitium layer of your skin. You see this? This is skin. All right, or it could be the coating of an organ or whatnot. But this little very, very red layer right there, that one little layer, is what they call the fluid-filled highway in the interstitium. All these balls were in this wall. And they have eroded out, and the fleshy stuff turned to mud, which is, flesh is just mud. Just turns into mud. And the balls are still really tough, so they don't erode. And the moss and so forth grows on there because there's still a lot of vitality to these, usually after they first originally wash out. Now, where were they originally? They were in this layer called the interstitium. The black balls here have little straps attached to them. In the interstitium, they're just little short straps, but they're still there. In the tendons, they're big, big, long straps. The balls hang in there, and the strap goes way long away over to a muscle or wherever. Here, they're just little straps, but they're still attached to these balls. And that's what this is right here. That's why they just erode out of here. You don't see all these columns sticking up. All right, so that's the two different types of balls. But we're going to go through, because I got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of examples of this. Like I said, I'm the repository for the world for crazy people. They've seen things they can't explain, and they send them to me and say, what do you think? Well, after my Mudfossil research, I fully understand what they're seeing now. Virtually everything. I can't look at anything and not understand it anymore. It's just so obvious once you understand everything's biology, and then you really deeply go into anatomy and biology and chemistry and what happened in this great flood and why the silicates appeared in this one layer. All right? Okay, let's see if Reuters is good to their word. Reuters.com brings you the latest news from around the world, covering breaking news in markets, business, politics, entertainment, technology, geology, all that stuff. And they do fact-checking. They say, when we show it to you, you can believe it because we did the fact-checking. Will they fact-check what I'm showing? Let's find out. All right, this is Roger. I love you all. Stay tuned for Big Balls. All right, I want to show you something, and before I go any further, I want to thank Becky Dorius, who sent me these years ago. I don't know, it's got to be 5-6 years ago. And this is the flat, abrupt transition of a tendon, and this is like from a leg or something like that. Now, you can't see, but inside there, deeply inside I'm going to try to put it in a microscope, and because it's so transitions, it's hard to see how many layers there really are of tendons, and how there's about a bazillion little fibers in here that you just can't see. There's just a taste of blood, just like I say, in the tendons, very, 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 very slight amount of blood, and they break off flat like a pancake, as just like Devil's Tower. Now, inside this, as again, I'll try to put it in a microscope, see if we can see anything, but it's kind of, they're very, very tiny. We might see something, but this is what they look like as these tendons, and there's a million of these actual little pieces of tendon in here. And each one of these ends up coming up to little tiny fibrils. So there's a bazillion of these little fibrils in each tendon. I mean, look at them. And these things, that's not small. That's a good size, from a good sized creature. All right, the things I've been showing you, these iron oxides. When you see this reddish looking color, that's iron oxide. Same thing here, iron oxide in here. And there'll be iron oxides in here as well. Iron oxides linger. They're not like they're not like other body fluids that just flush out. The iron oxides sometimes will stay, actually run out as actual blood. I've had them come out of the rocks, actually balls of blood come out. I'll show you in a second. But I got the heart here in the microscope. You see, there's a microscope. Here's the heart. Now, I got it up here, and you can see the red is the iron oxide. It infuses. Whoops, let me turn the light on here for the microscope. Whoops. That right there is actually where the little blood vessel is. And it's the red oxides tend to linger within the meat, basically. The rest is completely turned to silicates, and that was that heart. Okay, and we're right up next to the aorta. It's right over here in the microscope, and right there's the aorta right there. And that's where the blood came down. It's a little dark, but anyway, these are all biology. This is all biology, and the red oxides are the things that preserve the best. It's crazy, but it's true. And then the silicates, I understand that process as well. And again, thanks for Becky Dorius for sending me these. And also the feet, some of the feet were from Tish Egerton, and she has a site out there right near the University of Missouri, who is investigating this anacarta stuff. And I've tried to make contact and haven't been successful. I sent them pictures of the feet and everything, and it's really down the road from him. So maybe they'll take interest, maybe they won't. And the crazy other thing is, I'm right down the street from Yale, 20 miles from Yale, and they haven't taken any interest in any of the things that I've shown, including the DNA tests and the CAT scans and all the specimens. And they're making a bunch of statements I don't agree with. Now, if Reuters is true to their word, they will say, well, Yale said this, Roger said this, here's the story, here's the facts. They should have somebody that knows anatomy. This is anatomy. This is, and somebody that knows chemistry. Somebody knows biology. It's not hard to understand once you take a look at it, but to dismiss it before getting to look at it, because you don't have to look too much. That's not right, and that's what's happened. And now it's going on 12, 14 years, and there was a lot of years that were hard struggle. Now people understand it, and they're starting to get upset at academia for not responding to the reality of the world that we find ourselves in. And it relates to religion. It's all about religion. Because I was told the first words out of the guy's mouth from Yale was, "What are you, a creationist?" And I said, "No, I just found giant human beings." And then I had them, anyway. So they agree. It's one worldwide layer, and it was all caused by this salty water floods. And was it a geological? Well, hold on a second. Listen to this statement. Listen to this. This is from Yale, again, from Lydia Tarhan. Are the Ediacara organisms, all these things I've been showing you, some sort of failed evolutionary experiment? Yes, they are. They were from exactly what they said, the mating of gods with mortals, and they created giants and monsters and dragons and everything else. And they claimed that these were the first organisms that existed, and they didn't even have teeth or shells or anything. They were soft-bodied. No, they had all of the same things we have. This is a bone. All right, well, not anymore. It's what's called nucleophilic transition, and it's completely changed into like a mud fossil. They can't understand this. They still don't understand this at all. These aren't fossils that animals entirely soft body lived before evolution of shells, teeth, or bones. No. What I'm showing, and they were just giant creatures. So that's my statements, and if Reuters is true to their word, they're going to stand up and say, no, Roger's wrong or Roger's right, one way or the other. And then we'll take it from there. We'll make a discussion about it, because I got a feeling, well, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Let's see who's really good and honest and true and actually does the work to support the statements they say. I have done that, so I can stand proud. I don't have to sit down and say, oh, you guys tell me if I'm right or not. I know I'm right. Now, let's see what the discussion will bring of this. That's going to be the interesting part. And if you think I'm wrong, explain to me why I'm wrong. And I'm going to tell you right now, everywhere I say that there's blood coming out, you can get DNA out of this. I did. I got 3 DNA samples right out of directly red blood, basically. And I forgot. Let me show you the blood actually exuding out of these specimens. You see this right here? That lung is virtually 100% silicates, except the blood. The blood puddled down in here. Here's another lung. I got one around here. All right, that's a lung. And you see all that red blood in there? All that red iron oxides? That's blood, and it's still in there. The blood is you can't get a rock without blood. Now, what happened with this one here? Let me back this up. And you see all the little alveoli holes, and they're just all silicate now. They filled up with silicate, just like something like this. Only this was a tendon. And that was a tendon too. And it still kept a little red blood in there. And all the rest was silicates. They're right about the silicate-rich ocean. No question about that. But what happened here? This was the lung. All filled with blood when it died. It laid over like this. So this would have been twisted this way. That means the bottom would have filled up with blood. Up to here. And the top just filled in with silicates. Now, what about that blood? Was it still red and viable? Yes, absolutely. And here it is right here. This is what came out of that lung. It just bubbled out of there. You can get a lot of really, and I took very, very good blood out of here, out of this lung. I drilled a little hole down in here into where there's a little tube of blood. I mean, it's just saturated with blood. This thing's just soaked with blood, literally. And this is it right here. If I put water on there right now and scraped out a little bit, it just turned into mud, which is blood is mud. And flesh is mud. And this is, again, flat as a pancake, and this is because of the Great Flood. And this is on top of the surface of the Earth, so this is not 500 million years old. And it's DNA tested, and it's been CAT scanned. This is my buddy Caesar. He's a goose. Caesar Augustus. And there's his feathers. And they say everything died. They're right. Here's where his throat would have been. well, where it is, but it's sort of laying like this, because he died in a great flood too. This side's perfect. That side's perfect. Feather pattern and everything. And that's because of the phospholipids. Again, I do the chemistry, I do all that. I do everything. So if they want to come and say, Roger, you're wrong, let's talk. But I want one way or the other. I'm wrong or I'm right. It's time to resolve this. This is crazy. To have all this evidence and have nobody be willing to stand up. Absolutely amazing. I love you all.